Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev. Good day.
Good day. I
How
was
are
just looking at shirts real quick to see because I've got like a purple plum shirt on and it looks like you've got like a
you?
yep.
But we're in the same
Yeah,
color palette, so there you have it.
we are. We are. It happens
And here's the
frequently.
funny thing, I was actually going to put on a brown shirt this morning and I was drawn to the pink shirt.
Nice.
Isn't that interesting?
Nice. It is actually. It is always interesting. If we took the time to kind of appreciate all those little things and why we do it, and then I get to the gym like Friday or whatever, and I look, Brian are side by side, and I look in the mirror and I look down at my shirt and I turn around and looked at her, and it's like we were both wearing red tank tops that day. It's like and they're always giving us a hard time. Oh, did you plan this? Those things. We don't plan these things. They just happen. It just goes to show you the synchronicities that are happening all around you all the time.
The
So
connections.
how's life? Connection, because we're all connected.
Yeah. And even those that you think like, my husband and I were around each other every day. And so we tend to get in sync with things. I will say something. He's like, get out of my head. I was just thinking that type of thing. But it also happens with the people who you're not around like Bev and I aren't around each other very often. And we tend to do this whole color thing, or we're studying the same topic or having similar conversations just with other people. And so those are all representations of us being connected.
It's true.
And when the universe wants a message to come through, it will find the people that will come through, who will deliver those messages, who will have those conversations. And we kind of happen to be two of those people, I think.
We do. But it just goes to show you how easy it is for us to kind of connect with everybody. And I think it happens so easily that we don't even recognize it most of the time. And that's even the same for spirit people and everything. When we leave the physical body, that body was just, it sounds so like it doesn't matter, but it kind of doesn't matter in so many ways. It matters when we're using this vehicle, and it's to honor the space so that we can travel around here as much as long as we can. But we're not disconnected from anything else just because we're in this suit. We think that we are, but we're really not. We're always connected with everybody. It doesn't matter if I've had those urges like, oh, I really suddenly felt like I'm calling my mom. And it's not because I'm going to call my mom. It's not to be in that space of like, oh God, I feel like I want to call my mom and I can't call my mom. She's not there. And it's like, no, that just it just shows you the connection's always there. Because she's been gone for like 8 years. And so for me to get those feelings sometimes, it just reminds you that how connected we really all are. And maybe that desire might be nothing more than, oh, my mom is right here right now. Hey mom, how's it going? Right? But we can get caught up in the victim part, or caught up in the loss of, the lack of. And it's because we get caught up on these suits, but these suits are it's like discarded clothes on the floor. Once we leave that suit, it's no longer animated. It doesn't have any of our soul is not beaming through that what we consider physical any longer. So it's confusing, I guess, in a lot of ways. I'm looking at a lot of things for like this mediumship stuff, and I signed up for this. I'll have to look up the website, because you can sign up for a free reading or you can donate. And I know Suzanne Giesman was involved with this at some point, maybe when it was first getting off the ground. But it's for mediums to come into the space and practice. And then you have other mediums that are doing it all the time, but it's just like a safe place. So I signed up for this free reading, and I have this reading this morning. It was like 8 o'clock, and he's over in Geneva, Switzerland. And he's like saying how hot it is. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh God. And I didn't say anything. I'm like, oh, it's like 73 degrees here. And it's August. Like, we keep joking around here like it's August and it's 73 degrees. And his name was Jack. And it was awesome. But at the same time, I got to see, because from my perspective, everything's about learning, right? So I'm kind of watching him, not like in a judgment way, but like, okay, Suzanne says, when we're talking to people and we're talking to spirit, I don't have to have constant confirmation from my sitter and say certain things, but I noticed he would say, do you understand what I'm saying? You know, constantly looking for that feedback, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's like when you're connected with spirit, that flow is flowing through you, unless we get into our own way, and then our ego wants that confirmation. But if we trust that connection is there, and we trust that spirit is going to bring forward whatever our sitter needs to hear, it's awesome. But it's also knowing that there's a filter that comes with that. So he's like explaining some things, and at first it's like not resonating with me. And I guess I'm telling that to people because sometimes when you hear, if you guys go to a medium, or even when you're receiving the information, you may not receive it what you're considering accurately, because you're trying to make it fit into some sort of a template that you've already dealt with in your life. And as you're having this information flow through or into you, you can start being like, oh no, this isn't for me. And you know, you could go on that route, but I just stayed open with it and wondering with curiosity, like, where is this going? My mom came through. She seems to be a dominant force that comes through. And then the guy says, oh yeah, I'm just sitting here. And it just goes to show you, because people do this all the time. I've done it. We do this all the time, but we second guess ourselves. And that's the problem. We second guess ourselves. And if we would stop doing that, then when we know, and that connection gets stronger and stronger. But he was saying, oh yeah, I'm feeling all this acid, and she was just having some struggles, but not even realizing it was so nonchalant. And he's like, he brought up cancer. Could anyone bring up cancer? Yeah, I think cancer is quite a frequent thing that people would probably transition from. But he brought forward some other stuff. And I know that my mom struggled with my beliefs because she didn't understand that. I know that she would have me put hands on her when she was hurting, and I could put hands on her and it would stop the pain. So I would do that. And so I know she had an understanding and she believed in that stuff. And it wasn't like she was all closed-minded, but she wasn't really open to a lot of stuff. She wasn't open to tarot cards. She wasn't open. She was kind of scared by this healing stuff and stuff that we were all talking about. And like I said, she was always more of a hippie, spiritual and everything else. So it's not like she was shut off, but I think she somewhere got the idea that this was to be fearful, or for all I know, she was burned at the stake in a previous life. And so she wasn't allowing herself to have this full experience. I don't know. But it was just awesome. And it was awesome to sit in that space to be with someone as they're learning to become a psychic medium. And he's an older guy. I mean, he's probably like in his 60s, 70s, which is awesome. It's awesome because then he starts talking to you about energy and stuff like that. So that was cool. But it was just cool. And then not having that expectation of how things are going to play out, because it was free. You know, I'm going in, I'm going to give feedback at some point, but it's so beneficial just to kind of look at the whole thing all the way around and not have a judgment about it, to just be in that space to receive whatever is going to come through, and not kind of want to control it. And that's what we want to control. We want to control our whole lives. And even sitting down for a reading, we want to control who's coming through, what they're going to talk about, what they're going to say. You know, this whole aspect of it, instead of it letting it be just organic, letting it just flow out. But that's the example for everything. If we just sat back and watched everything more organically and just kind of traveled through on this journey, we wouldn't have any of these expectations, and we would just be in this flow all the time. I love how Spirit's talking to me this morning, because that's how they're talking to me. But I do believe it is it's a constant ebb and flow. We talk about this a lot, but it's in all aspects of our life. It's not limited to any one part of our life. It's all aspects. So it's just kind of exciting having those experiences and then being on both sides and just kind of, I didn't try reading him, which would have been funny, but we didn't have that kind of time frame. And it's like, I don't know. That wasn't the space to do it. Right. So some of the things that Suzanne Giesman has given me as far as the mediumship goes, it's like connecting when your sitter sits across from you, and they say sitter because it's the person you're reading for, but they call them a sitter, and it's whoever's sitting across from you. But it doesn't have to be a sitter. It could be like we're coaching, right? You do coaching, massage. It could be at the grocery store. It doesn't matter. But if you connect with that person 100%, and fearlessly, because there's nothing to be afraid of. People will think, oh God, what's in their energy? If we're vibing high, it doesn't matter what's in their energy, because the only thing that you're offering up is love. And so it's to be in that space, but she'll see herself connecting heart to heart with her sitter. So we can connect heart to heart with anybody. I've heard some people focus on the heart. And so the one woman was focusing on the heart of her son that was in the spirit world. and she was focusing on sending this rainbow to her son's heart. And so she goes, gets this reading done, and the reader is like, I'm seeing like a heart or a rainbow going from your heart to another. And she's like, oh my God. So it was a confirmation for her, right? In her mind, she thinks she's just making this up. It's not real. But now she's got someone outside of her. Maybe it's psychically that she's picking up that information, but she's got someone outside of her that's giving her confirmation of what you're doing is the right thing you're doing. Keep doing it. The thing is, if we tuned in and felt all that stuff, we would know that we're tuned in and we're connected, and we don't have to have a confirmation from somebody else. But in the beginning, that's how it feels. We kind of look for all those little things. We look for those confirmations. We look for the aha moments all the time. And it happens more frequently.
So does Suzanne, how does she, if you can answer this, how does she define the difference between being psychic and being a medium?
She talks about being psychic is when you're just automatically picking up whatever's in their stuff. Like you're pulling in their energy and filling them, and you can bring forward a lot of information that way. And then the mediumship is just being that medium, that centerpiece in between the people here and the people there. You're just bringing forth the dialogue that they need to hear at this time. So she's like talking about it. It's the difference would be you're connecting to spirit directly. You're having them merge with you. You're not merging with the person across from you, which in so many ways can still be considered psychic, because it's the psychic information that you're picking up from the spirit person, I would think. But it kind of all just runs together. But I know that she specifically talks about the psychic stuff, like, because she says, if you're in the middle of a reading and let's just say that I was struggling trying to bring forward a loved one, right? So she says a lot of times what the go-to is next, they automatically connect in with the person. They focus on the person more and they start bringing in information. And I don't think that's bad or good. Maybe that helps the person that's doing the reading to kind of open up and to get into that flow of things. But it's to not be, her whole thing is to not be in that space. And even this gentleman, when I was having the reading done, I asked him at the end of it, he says, well, do you have any questions? And I said, well, psychically, like, where do you think where my path is going, or blah, 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 blah. And he says, well, they don't like us to do that because now they're keying in on psychic, whatever they're tuning into with you. Their goal is to connect only with the spirit instead of having to use the crutch of using their psychic abilities. But like when you see Tyler Henry and he'll say, well, do you have any questions at all? Where do you want to go with this? Do you want to have the psychic medium? Do you want the medium, or do you want me to do like a psychic? Do you want to know about your future and stuff like that, or whatever's going on in here? And then he'll do it that way. So it kind of differentiates the two, because the psychic's more tuning into the person and the mediumship's more tuning into the psychic medium or the spirit people.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense at all.
No, I just wanted you to explain it so that our audience would understand.
Gotcha.
And this totally goes along with on Saturday, I did a beginner's card reading class. And it was interesting because it was a reminder for me as to where I began. And it's that wanting the validation and being worried about, am I saying things right? Am I getting it right? Or they understand, right? It's that nervousness. And so we used oracle cards and just, letting them practice. They each practiced like 3 readings while we were together. And of course, when you're doing in a setting like that and you're new to something, and now you have the teacher sitting in front of you and you're doing a reading for the teacher, it's even more nerve-wracking. And I know that to be true for myself, especially in my beginning days. But just the cards that came up every time was spot on. And it was teaching them, I told them like the card decks that they chose had the booklet, but teaching them to rely on their own intuition, just what's coming to you, what words or images, how do you feel? How would you interpret this based on your experiences in your life? How would you, deliver that message through what you've experienced? Because that's how we do it. That's how our interpretations are, is based on what we've experienced. and then we translate that into the best language we can to deliver the message. And so it was interesting to be in that space. And then at the end, I did a 1-card reading for each of them. And one of the girls, the card deck I used had, she drew the pig, and the pig is like intelligent and generous and wealthy, I think it was. And those were the words on it. But when I flipped it over and looked at it, I was like, I had this sense like they had pigs in there, like actual pigs, but I didn't say it, right? And so I just focused on the message of the card and what I was getting from that. And when I got all done, it was a mother-daughter that was there, and they looked at each other and looked at me, and because I said, you know, how smart pigs are, and they're highly intelligent, and this is a representation of you. And I just went into a whole lot more than that, but they looked at me and said, well, yeah, she was raised pigs and she totally knows how smart they are. And it was super funny. And the other kid who has he's more of a follower. He's not in his confidence or standing in his power yet. And the card came up, perfect for him, and, you know, flowed off that. And so it was I'm just sharing this because here are, you know, some beginners, and they have this information flowing to them, but because of the not good enough story, worried about what other people are going to think, worried about being judged and criticized, worried about getting it right, worried about not being good enough, like all that stuff, they're questioning themselves. And I, you know, I totally get that too, because in the beginning, that's what I did. So, and with practice, it gets easier. It just does. And it's actually a lot more fun.
Yeah. Because basically all you are is a news reporter. Things are showing up. That's the thing. And people don't understand when you're playing with cards and stuff like that. There's sometimes I'll look at a card and I don't see something. Then all of a sudden I'm looking at it with whoever's sitting in front of me, whoever I'm doing a reading for, anything like that. And I'll see something. I'm like, and I'll think, how come I've never noticed this on this picture before? Like
Right.
I've seen this deck of numerous times, but we don't. And there's a lot of validation just in that alone. But we're just interpreting whatever we see. And it's like, it's up to them, however they want to receive that information, because there's so much to be open, you know, that's open for interpretation. There really is, especially, and then you're teaching a class and you've got numerous energies around. That's one thing that even Suzanne would say. And I've even heard Tyler Henry, I've heard the Long Island medium, any of them, but it's like, if there's someone extra in the house, their spirit might be coming forward for them. So it's like, be aware that when you want to have a reading or you want to do something, that if you have extra people, their spirit people could hijack the whole freaking session. And that's just the way it is. So when you open yourself up and you're bringing someone else in, that's an opportunity to happen. That's just a funny thing, because I wasn't even thinking about that when I was talking to that guy this morning, because Freeman's here too. So I don't know if he would have picked up anything at all, but you know, it could have been the friend that he was picking up, could have been a friend of his or something, actually. And actually, I will have to talk to him after this, because I'm pretty positive it was. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Its spirit is so amazing, because this conversation, if we didn't even have this conversation, that wouldn't have came forward, and I wouldn't have had a realization that there's more information to share with him. But it's like there wasn't enough information besides the fact the friend came forward that has cancer, because he started to say there was one of my friends were there, and I have friends that have passed, but she didn't pass. My other friend didn't pass. Well, that's not true. I'm just processing all kinds of information right now. So holy smokes.
And sometimes when a sitter, like we go to get a reading, whether it's a psychic reading, card reading, mediumship reading, you witnessing it with Bev. Like she received some information from the reader and it didn't really resonate with her, but now they're off the phone. She's talking about it, and now other things are popping up, and now she's like, oh, so a lot of times it's difficult for the sitter, the person receiving the reading, to validate the reader because the sitter draws a blank, or they forget, or it's it just doesn't make sense in that moment. But
No,
then,
because I was on, because my mind, right? So I already had, my mind was already like, oh, well, it could be Susan. Well, she died. She was driving her motorcycle and she got hit. She got hit and killed. So it wasn't from cancer, but then I got stuck on that, right? We get stuck on, we hold on to one little thing, not realizing I have other friends that have transitioned at the same time that have transitioned from cancer and stuff like that. So that was interesting, but not enough to bring forward the information. But this is like truth that you're saying right now too, because it happens all the time, and it happens for people. So it's like, don't get caught up when you're having a reading or when you're doing any of these things and that you're second guessing everything, because we get so attached to one thing, not recognizing there was something else. And sometimes it has to be with a story with somebody else. Like, right, we've heard a guy, he was doing a reading on someone, and he was telling the girl, he was giving the information to her, and it was about a rattlesnake, and she's like, I don't know anything about that. And he's instead of ignoring instead of ignoring what the information that she was receiving and giving out, because we're just reporters, you just report exactly what you see. It's not going to make sense to us most of the time. And she starts asking around later on and finds out, yes, there was a situation with a rattlesnake that was with one of our other friends, which goes to show you that wasn't psychic. It couldn't have been picked up from the sitter. It was a conversation that was brought forward through the mediumship, from spirit, that had to do with somebody else. It wasn't even in the house or the vicinity or anything. She had to ask around. But because she was curious and it helped her to ask around, she got the information that she was looking for. And then, of course, more confirmation. And then it's like, holy smokes, you can't discount that, because now now you know that your loved one's there, because it's even tied in someone else, and it's even helped that other person, not even realizing, talking to them. So it touched base with them. They got to talk about the story, gives confirmation. He gets confirmation. Oh, he's still alive, he's still around. She's getting confirmation. And so is the reader. Like it's beneficial all the way through.
yeah, it's pretty fascinating when stuff like that happens. And then I would also say that sometimes you receive information from a reader and well, like Bev was demonstrating a while ago, it just may not make sense at all until maybe later in the day or a few days later, something happens that triggers, like, oh, they mentioned this coming up, or now I get what that was all about. So don't always, if something doesn't resonate, just take note of it and don't discard it. Like, give it space, right? Let it rest, and then see how it shows up later. For sure.
Yeah. Because you just don't even know. You just don't even know. And I've even heard Suzanne Giesman even talk about it. I've had another one that had done a reading on me, and she's bringing up stuff, and it's like, it wasn't for me. That was the beginning of the reading. So it could have been like leftover from a previous sitter. It could be from somebody else you've had experience with, or, that person had experience with. So it's like, not even to get frustrated if you're giving out information and it doesn't seem to resonate with the person you're talking to. It'll make sense. It may not make sense right that moment, but it will make sense. Just don't be attached to the outcome. Be excited, like, oh, this is interesting. This is interesting. This came forward. So we'll see how it plays out. What's going to come forward from here? Just let it be a game. Let it be fun.
And so while we're talking about this, and I actually feel it's important, is what would you say is red flags about a reader?
If they're saying red flags about a reader, well, first of all, some of the red flags are they're just like they're reading your mannerisms, or they're hooking up just to your psychic stuff. They're not bringing forward anybody, or they're kind of reaching, because like I said, you could say, oh, they had cancer. But when he started bringing up, oh, I had all this acidy feeling, and it's just not my digestive system. And then I told him, I said, you're not wrong. She had esophageal cancer, and she constantly had reflux. So that there was information that was there, but it could have been so basic. I don't know if you would call them red flags, but maybe that's not so evidential. oh, your mom's in spirit and she's so happy for the person you turned out to be. And she's so happy now. And she just shows up for you whenever, just basic
Big.
generic stuff that, and I don't know if that's so much of a red flag because people do pick up information, and that's how, if I'm having a soul merge with mine, then I'm saying those things. Those could be all just the feelings that I'm feeling, but there's no evidence in that. There's no, what's your name, rank, serial number? What have you noticed your loved one's doing recently? There's so much more information that can come. And that's even how I felt like with this reading. It was kind of just generic, kind of basic. There was a couple little things in it, which is, I mean, if I was to say that, I kind of pick up on stuff. If I wanted to call it generic, because that's the same, I would kind of say about a similar thing. If someone's in my space, and I'm feeling like I don't want to be here, and I'm feeling all these emotions because I'm hooking up to them psychically. I guess, you just have to use discernment with these people. Honestly, I can't even really think of any immediate, like, no, this is definitely not it. I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. You would have to trust your intuition. The thing I think about is Whoopi Goldberg, and all the flashing and all that stuff. That's what I think about. But it's like, I don't know how to, I haven't had that in my personal experience.
Well, I know there's a couple of things that I would bring up, and I'm just doing this for the benefit of the audience because I think they're important. For one, it's going to definitely teach you to listen to your intuition, for sure. One is that when you have a reader who is telling you what you need to do or should do, to me, a reader provides information and says, like, here's what could happen if you continue this route. Here's what could happen if you can go this route, like giving you these options, laying them out, and providing a little bit of guidance, and not just flat out saying, well, you need to do this. I've heard people say, like, oh my gosh, told me I needed to leave my husband. Well, how do you feel about it? I mean, like, are you in danger? Is this something that you've been on your heart? Maybe you're been contemplating it anyway because that's in your energy. Is it just a fleeting thought that you had, but it's still lingering, right? So just being aware of how the reader is delivering messages. And then there's the infamous, you have a curse and pay me extra money to remove that curse. You have demons around you, or whatever that story might be. I would say if you're in a emotional heavy space and you've been there for a while, then you could be in a space of attracting heavy emotional spirits, even kind of negative spirits. They might kind of hang around you, right? Contribute to that heaviness. But the more you shine your light, the more you come out of that heaviness. The dark can't be where the light is. And so be aware of people who tend to take advantage of you, especially when you're super down, depressed, feeling hopeless, because that makes you even more vulnerable to what we call scams. And that's what it is. So it's just having awareness. I'm not, and then there's, I know this has happened to a couple of psychic mediums that one of them is my mentor, and the other one's kind of like colleague. She's in the same mastermind group as I am. People, duplicating your account, using your pictures, and then reaching out to your friends or contacts and saying, hey, I got some important message and I need to deliver it to you. Do you want to schedule a reading? We don't do that. People who are in their truth, and we don't reach out like that. It doesn't happen. So just being very aware and mindful. And again, this will give you the opportunity to listen to your intuition when it comes to stuff like that, because you have it too. So the way it was explained to me is that we're all psychic, which means we're all intuitive. And it's been said, and I'm starting to question it a little bit, that all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. So the medium is the person who is that bridge between physical world and spirit world. But here's a conversation that we could have is, I feel the more, we talk about this, the more we talk about we're all connected and we are all in tune with energy, and the energy never dies and all exists. Like, we're all mediums too, just not everybody is tapped into that ability. But in fact, they probably have, they just don't know it, because those abilities show up as, grandma baked cookies and they were the best cookies ever. And you get a scent or a whiff of baked cookies, and there's no bakery around you, and maybe you're in your car or something. And that's a sign grandma's with you, or maybe you smell grandpa's pipe tobacco or something. That's a medium. That's being a medium, is you're receiving the messages from spirit. So how do you feel about that? I'm just opening this up as.
No, I agree with you 100%. And even like listening to you as you're describing things, it's being aware of a reader that wants you to be codependent on them.
Yes.
It's one and done, honestly. And if you feel like you need more information later on, you might go to that person, or you might gravitate towards somebody else. Also, anything that's fear-based, if they keep telling you fear-based stuff, like I've heard Tyler Henry say, they're talking about, and the energy is neutral when he's bringing it. They're talking about like heart. You might have some heart stuff going on. They're recommending that you should get your heart looked into. And I know one of the persons he did tell to do that, and I don't know if he ever did, because he died not long after that meeting happened. And it was with I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a movie star or whatever, but he died shortly after. He had a family member that had transitioned from heart stuff, and then he brought it forward. And it wasn't from a space of like, listen, you're going to die if you don't go get your heart checked out, because we're just reporters. All you're doing is translating the information that's coming from that source to the source that's the sitter that's sitting across from you. That's it. You're only reporting what you see, hear, smell, taste, what you're sensing in your body, whatever, all that stuff. You're using all your senses with all of this. So it's not a fear-based thing. And so when I hear someone start talking fear-based, or here's an example, and I'm not saying that the reader was a bad reader, but it's just like they may have learned that way, and that's the space they're coming from. We had someone that had their son had transitioned, and they were being told that their son was stuck in this place and couldn't figure out why he's here and what he's doing. Is this possible that person was like that? Yes, that reader could have been in that space where this is where he's at right this moment. But we also know that we're never going to stay in that space, because if we're going to be in our human, and even on this space, we could question things. Like one of my daughter's friends had been shot and killed by the sheriff department. So with that whole experience, she was told, or there was a feeling that he was kind of stuck, and I would feel it sometimes, that he kind of, and not stuck, but he wasn't willing to let go of this place because he couldn't figure out how did this happen? Like, how did I get shot down like that? I was getting out of my car and walking into the house. How did I get shot and killed this way? Whatever happened between the time he got there, however that all played out, it is what it is. It has how it happened, but it's not. Your reader would come through and be like, he's had some difficulties going into the light, or not wanting to go into the light yet because he's trying to make sense of this, but he will go. His father or such and such is waiting on the sidelines, whatever they're seeing. And that's just for the reader to ask more questions. Oh, are you not wanting to go to the light right now? Who's nearby that can help? There's just so many other things that we can do at that time. So we don't want fear-based. It's not a fear-based thing, because that's traumatizing. That was traumatizing for the loved ones. That's how the message was received. Oh my God, my loved one is stuck where they're at and they can't get beyond this place. And that's not truth. And then that goes to the same thing. It's still praying and honoring those people, whether they're in physical or non-physical, and including them in our prayers so that they find their own space. They find their own space. They're closer to it than we are really in the physical vessel, most of us, but it's just not being caught up in that fear base, because someone can really hook you in, like you were saying, being vulnerable. When you're vulnerable like that, they could hook you in with whatever, and all they have to do is tell you, man, they can hook into your psychic information and know how you feel about this person, feel your grieving, feel your regrets, your remorses. They can feel all these things. And yes, that can be used and manipulated. It really can, but that's where our discernment comes in. And we really key in with our own intuition. No, practice with this stuff. That's why I'm talking about this stuff. I think that's why the conversation's even coming up today, because it's not that anyone's special that can do this. We can all do this. And there's not any reason to rely on an outside source besides it's letting you know, it's giving you the confirmation, the breadcrumbs, so you can go follow it yourself, for you to understand that you have your own connection. Because the more that you do this, we start getting our confidence and we start understanding things are different. Next thing you know, that evolves into we're telepathically communicating because we don't have to use the words anymore. And we're trusting this flow of this information that's constantly coming in. This is baby steps. This is the beginning. And you can only know someone else's energy if you know your own energy. So you have to know your own energy when you're sitting there. So it's going through this process. And it's even for me, you go through this process to clear up the stuff. That was one of the guys, the thing he said this morning, and I didn't give him enough credit probably at the time because I was listening to the information, but he's like, you've done a lot of, and he kept pointing to the mouth, but he says, you've done a lot of work, inside work. And it's true. I have done a lot of work, to where my voice has changed, where my words that come through have changed, to where I'm feeling more optimistic about everything. And I don't want to hear about the freaking news. And it's because it doesn't resonate with me. When I hear about it, I send prayers. But to me, that information, I have to trust this for myself. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. So I'm not going to sit here and try to make sense to anybody else why I feel this way. That's how I feel. I don't have to justify it any longer. And that's funny that I'm saying that, because I also recognize my tone and my voice changed, because I started to go down that path, and it's like, it's not necessary. It's necessary for us to individually find out what our path is. It's up to us to individually take that next move, whether it's taking a breath for a second, and that's your next move, whether it's putting on your left shoe instead of your right shoe first, if that's your next move, and whether it's like honoring yourself and your body saying, I don't have any more to give today, so that's all I'm going to do. That's it. And it's steps, it's baby steps the whole way, because it's honoring self. It's making those decisions. Man, I have a person that I talk to, and she says, I really wish I listened to my intuition. She said, I woke up and I was to go to work that day. And she says, I did not want to go to work. I even talked about it to my husband. I don't want to go to work. And he's like, oh, you'll be fine. Just go to work. And she said, all the way up to, she knew she wasn't supposed to go to work. She ended up getting injured at work. And she knew she shouldn't have gone, but she went, and the situation happened, lost part of a limb. But it was something that she was constantly listening to. Am I trying to scare you? No, just listen. We just listen. We don't know the reasons why we make the decisions that we do sometimes, but it's just to honor that. And we so don't honor ourselves because we're so afraid we're going to be judged, that we're going to do something wrong. Oh my gosh, what if I don't show up to work today? And what if they have to work harder, or they have to do this? What if you don't show up to work today and you take good care of yourself and everything works out smoothly for them too? What if? It doesn't have to be the negative side of things, but that's how we've been programmed. And it's like we can stay in the program or we can get out of the program. And that's part of my news thing. That's the program. And I'm not part of the program anymore.
Yeah, your intuition is going to tell you a lot as to whether to follow or lead or step aside.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's still neutral, right? It's still not coming through, and it's not like, Amy, make a right turn, make a right turn, make a right turn. Amy, you need to make this right turn or you're going to die. You're going to die. Make a right turn. It's not like that. It's a choice. Hey, Amy, there's a turn coming up here. Make a right turn. And all of a sudden you might make the turn and be like, wow, I didn't know. I don't know why I made that turn. I never go this way, but it felt like it was the right thing to do. And nothing happens. Perfect. Nothing happened because you were protected from going the opposite direction, but not from a fear space. It's not from a fear space. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, and so it's definitely want to be aware of a reader who instills fear. I'm the type of person that I will, like I said earlier, provide guidance. Like, here are options. Here's what's coming to me. My prayer before anytime sitting with doing a reading, a client or students, is may I receive the messages with love, deliver them with love, and may they be received with love. That's my intention every single time, because I want people to leave feeling better than when they showed up. That's the goal. They're coming to me for a service, and my service, the way I show up and the way I deliver the information and the way I provide the guidance, is important to me, that it helps, not hinders, that it empowers, not keep them in a victim state or make them feel worse than they already might at that time, right? So be sure that whoever you're guided to get readings from, that you're listening to what your body's telling you, whatever messages are coming to you about, does this feel good or does it not feel good? We mention that at least once every week. Do what feels good.
Because I find that people do it, and we've done it too, but we'll do things that don't feel good to ourselves. We'll show up to the thing, we'll go to the same job every time. And I'm not telling people to quit their job, but we don't honor ourselves. We will do things that don't feel good for ourselves because we feel obligated. We feel, I've got another person that I've been talking to, and she sends money to her family overseas. And it's like the money is not going to the person that she's giving it to. It's actually, that person's actually sending it down to another family member. And it's like, but this person still feels obligated that they have to do that. And I told her, I said, when you feel obligated to do something, now you're kind of like thinning yourself out, because you're coming from a place of lack. You don't have more to give right now. You're coming from a place, what?
Resentment.
Oh yeah, you bring all these emotions come forward, and you're coming from a place of, you know what I mean? I'm giving all this, and what am I getting in return? And it's not from a space of love. That's the bottom line. It's not from a space of love. And I told her, I said, I'm not going to tell you to not send money, because that's not my place. But if you can't get into a space where you're sending from a space of love and abundance, then you're creating opposing feelings. And you're going to have, just like you just said, we're going to have those feelings. We're not going to have those feelings of being loving and connected and supportive. And we see how it plays out, because I've seen how it plays out. But when you do it from a space of love, it's like I told her, because she said that she hadn't even talked to this person for a long time, and she doesn't want to talk to this person, but she loves this person very much. And I said, you'll feel better probably after you have the conversation. And because what's happening is you're holding all of this inside of you, and it's allowed to just keep building and be whatever it's going to be. And it feels uncomfortable. It just feeds on itself. It doesn't make you feel any better. It doesn't make you feel like abundant in sharing. It makes you feel closed off and like you're a victim, and you've got something to talk about with people, but you don't want to share this stuff because you got to hold on to it. And it's like, I said, you don't want to hold on to it. I said, if you can't get into a space of feeling where you're feeling positive, you're feeling uplifted, you're sending love to this person, don't do it until you can. Just like don't send the money until you're in a space of feeling great. When you're in that space of feeling great, knowing that it's going to that person, it doesn't matter where it's going from there, because you won't never think about it. But if you're giving too much of yourself and you don't have enough for yourself here, and you're working for everybody else and you're not working for yourself here, that creates a lot of resentment. It creates a lot of lack. It just is uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. And that's all she needed to hear. That's all she needed to hear right there. It wasn't permission, because she didn't need someone pushing against her so that she can push against something else. She just needed just a different perspective, right? And that would be probably more of a psychic thing when we're talking to people like that. When we pick up stuff and we're working on them, I feel like that's a lot more psychically picked up, and we're helping them put words to what's going on with them, so they can have an understanding, so it's not staying trapped inside of them. That's one of the things, and that helps free them up, so then they can have maybe meditation, so they can have better connections, so they can find their own path.
And that emotion, stuffing it in and holding on to it, is going to eventually, most likely, create some kind of physical issue. And then you go down that whole rabbit hole of getting help to fix the problem on the physical body, and then maybe you're taking stuff and then more stuff and then more stuff that just compounds the issue and doesn't resolve what's going on. Whereas bringing it to her awareness now, where she can address it right now, it's probably going to save her thousands of dollars in medical bills. And the idea of getting into a space that feels good before taking action, super important, right?
Yeah, it's super. I mean, I've had super impressive experiences by setting my intentions before I was to do something, by putting myself into a higher frequency, or by finding something that fills my heart up, and then I feel like my heart's going to blow open. It's my grandkids. Those are two main things right now, that I'm about to have a third, but that just kind of, I can sit and think about their faces and stuff, and my heart just opens wide open. And then I can come into that space and be able to move forward and have conversations. And now the space is so different, because I'm coming from a space of love instead of lack. Instead of, I can't think of what the freaking word is, but it's like when you're giving of yourself like all the time, you just don't, you can't come from a space of love. You just probably feel like you're drowning in a lot of ways. So it's to get above that. But
And
we get into that obligation, right?
yeah. And I was going to say too, is she's the one, knowing that that's happening, she's the one that's suffering, because she's thinking about what's happening to the money, and it's not going where she wants it to go. It's going somewhere else, and she has no control over that. So she's
Yes.
internally suffering. Whereas the
Yep.
people on the other end are getting that money, and they're probably rejoicing, and so, thankful or appreciative, however they're receiving it, that this money is coming to them.
Yeah.
So, keeping in mind that how you're viewing a situation also can put you in a space of suffering.
100%. Because it's a choice. I mean, she could either do it or don't do it. And if it's not going to the person that you're intending to help, and it's going to another person that's in a whole family, again, it's a choice. It's still a choice, that that when that leaves you, that's how it's going to happen. But if you're giving it as a gift, and you're giving it as a gift every day or every month, then it's a gift, and it doesn't matter how that gift is being used, because you gave it as a gift. And that's having an attachment to an outcome, right? So it's also not having that attachment to the outcome. But the thing is, it's not sacrifice. That's what I want to say. It's not sacrificing of self, but it feels sacrificial when you're doing it not from a space of love. So now you're taking something else from you, and it just makes all this feel even that much harder with inside of yourself. And it's not even a true story. It's a perspective. And then it's like, even having people, I feel like when we have these confrontational conversations with people, like, you did me wrong, you were not a great dad, you were not a great mom, or you were this and you were that. And it really doesn't have to do with that person, but we get so attached to that we're the victim, and we're having blame go on to somebody else. And I feel like whenever you have those conversations, it's never going to give you what you wanted it to give you. You're never going to walk away from that conversation feeling like you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish coming from that space.
No,
It's
you
just
wake up
not.
at midnight going, man, I should have said that too.
Exactly. But it still wouldn't have been heard, because it would have been still received the same way that it was received initially, right? It wouldn't have made a difference, because I've done that too.
Yeah.
But it's just recognizing it just from that space. If we're not coming from a space of love, then where are you coming from? It's just that simple.
And
You want to come from
You
love.
can have hard conversations from a loving space.
You can. Or you can just have the conversations in meditation, and you have the person sitting across from you, and then you have a soul to soul conversation about how you're feeling, and you're being seen and you're being heard. And it doesn't have to be anything else, because as soon as you start putting blame on somebody else or pointing fingers at somebody else, any of that stuff, you're automatically triggering them. You're triggering a response that's going to not be what you want it to be, because it's not from a space, it's just not from a space of love. But we can come from a space of understanding and have an understanding where that person is on their path, and not have an expectation of them to be exactly what you want them to be, because they had different experiences. They didn't get to grow up the same way that you did. And maybe that was offered up because of the parents that you had. You know what I mean? There's just so many different, we could go on different paths, a walkabout on any of that stuff, really, and explore it. But it just boils down to being in the space of love. If I'm not coming from a space of love, like we talked about, if I'm going to yell at the kids, I know immediately at that moment I'm not coming from a space of love, period. And what am I going to accomplish? I can manipulate the conversation. I can manipulate it to make them understand. Exactly. But what am I getting out of that?
I can't even say satisfied, because there's no satisfaction in it either, because they're still not going to do what you want them to do because they don't understand.
They don't understand, and you're in a different vibrational frequency than they are. And that's the difference. And that's what I was asking her. I said, tell me something. You've changed a lot, but your family hasn't changed a lot. And she said, yes. I said, well, then it's for you to be able to see the family where they're at on their journeys and not have a judgment of where they're at, but know that they're just on their journey. And then also recognizing how far you've come to be able to have the different perspectives that you have now. So it's like, it's just different ways of looking at things. And it's just like you, we try to empower the people that are in front of us or that are around us, because we want them to go away being stronger and feeling more confident and stepping into their power and being that ripple, carrying the ripple out from us too. So, I mean, this is something, is there an attachment to that? No, because from a space of love, it's just love. And it's just fun to watch the ripples.
That's right. And the ripples are, we help somebody, or somebody's listening to this podcast, and then you take that information, you implement it, you share it with others, or you share the link for them to watch the video, and it just keeps going out further and further. And so beneficial to take stuff that's loving and let that ripple out instead of trying to send that negativity out. The butterfly effect.
It's what?
The butterfly effect.
It's true. It's true. The one thing I don't know, we take for granted a lot of things. Like I can take for granted that I could feel things. Remember I told you at the beginning, I picked up a selenite tower. I have one right here. I picked up a selenite tower. It's probably this one, but I was at the New Age store. First time I've been at a New Age store, I pick it up and I'm like freaking flying higher than a kite. I'm like super high, happy, perfect. I'm like going back and telling my friend that we had gone through massage together. Now we're going through aesthetics together. I'm like, you've got to go in the store. Let's go there today afterwards. We go into the store and she picks it up and she feels like she's being slammed down to the earth. And it's like totally not for her. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's weird. So I pick it up and then I feel it and I'm feeling it, right? So I'm talking about this because we're talking about feeling things within our bodies. So for me, I've taken for granted, I think that I can feel those things. And I think we all can do this, but that's one of the things that caught my attention. So it let me know that I can do this. But it's to feel the energies within the body. Because so sometimes like when you're going through and you're doing the chakra opening, and you're looking at your chakras, they'll bring forward the colors. They'll talk about that kind of stuff. But I've noticed for me lately, I can just focus my energy on that space and then I can feel it. And I feel it there. And then I can focus on other areas and I can feel where I'm not feeling as much, but it's in the same center, right? So then I know that there's some restrictions or blocks or something going on in that space. And now it needs my attention. That's all. Like we think we got to do all this work. Oh, I got to go sit and meditate and clear all my chakras. No, I'll go and sit now. This is what I've been doing and I'll sit. It's easy for me to get focused on my third eye because as soon as I get there, I can feel it. And I can do it on my root chakra, but there's places that are My sacral, yeah, I don't recognize so much on that one. My throat's gotten a lot better. I'm starting to feel my heart. If you go back probably almost a year ago, maybe longer, I was constantly talking about, you know, well, constantly, I don't know if that's really a little too ridiculous, but I was thinking about it and I would focus on the heart and I wouldn't feel anything at all. I wouldn't feel the energy that I feel at my third eye. I wouldn't feel the energy that I feel at my root chakra. But now that I've been focusing on those, so I've been paying extra attention to them. And so it's starting to grow. And now I know that once I go through this whole system of the 7 major chakras, that I know that I can get those all in tune and aligned. And I'm already in that process. But I have made this very complicated. I have tried to do it this way. And again, the reading today, he's like, well, do you meditate? Well, no, not frequently. I don't. I do meditation is in so many different ways. I don't know why I freaking pussyfoot around that so much. I just don't get it. So, this is my journey. But what are my questions? I ask, is there something that's blocking me? Do I have a fear of something? Is there a reason that I don't want to stand up and recognize this information or feel this information? So it's like, this is my journey of asking myself questions because I don't know where this is going. I don't know where the mediumship stuff's going or the channeling stuff's going or any of that stuff. I just know that I'm being pulled that direction. So I'm going that direction. I'm talking to one of my friends. It was on Friday and we're talking on the phone. I got a urge to call her because we work out and then we had left, Brianna and I had left early the day before. And she's like, oh, I missed you guys. I'm like, did you just get there right after we left? And she says, I think so. I said, because I didn't see her vehicle. I said, but I don't. So I called her up because I didn't want her to feel bad. I don't want her to think, this is what I was saying. I don't want you to think that we were just trying to get out of there and not be there with you when you came back to finish up the workout. But I want to get home because I live outside of town and she's got to get off to work, whatever. And she's like, oh, no big deal. And I'm like, so what are you going to do? She tells me that she's going to go to Prescott or whatever with her family. And there's some sort of a thing going on there, some meeting stuff that's going on there. And I got a pinching on it was up higher. It wasn't down low. And usually when I get a no, and that's only when I ask a yes or no question, I'll get like a pinching off the side of my face. But I felt like a pinching off up higher. And I thought, so I interpreted it. And all I told her is, listen, this is what I'm getting. And usually on this side, I'll get like a no. And this is as she was telling me that she's going to be doing this. She sends me a message a little while later or that evening. And she says, we decided not to go. My husband said that we're not driving in this weather because the weather was very scary that day. It was on Friday. Like it was crazy out here, like crazy. You couldn't even count 1,000 and you were having thunder. Like it was constant like that. It was crazy and it was raining really good. So there was all that stuff happening. And she says, thank you for your intuition. And I thought, oh, that's right. That was an intuitive thing. But again, I'm just a reporter, right? I'm just reporting what I see. When I'm talking to someone and now I'm starting to notice when I start getting the goosebumps, they're so different now. Have they always been different? I don't freaking know, but I know now because this is another way that my body's guiding me. What does it mean? I don't know. Like sometimes it'll totally only hit my left side. Sometimes it'll only hit my right side. Sometimes it comes down the front. Sometimes it goes down the back. It's like, it's so much different information. And then I feel like when it goes down the back, it's like you're being supported, right? Because our back's support system. So I'm just kind of having this conversation out loud because this is what I've been experiencing and you could interpret it and give me information too. But it's like, I'm noticing all these things, it's so much more than I thought it was. It's more than just holding on to that crystal and having that high feeling. It was really paying attention to all the energy how we feel it inside of ourselves. And it goes back to practicing inside of our third eye and in our mind and our intuition is to visually see things like, oh, I'm looking for my car keys. What do those look like? Like seeing them in your mind's eye, seeing them, because that helps you with your interpretation and it helps open up that space. It helps to give you awareness to that space. It's always there. I feel like it's already open. I feel like all that stuff it's our thoughts that think that we're shut off from something or we're closed off or we don't have something. It's always there. It's just playing with it. So if you play with these things all day long, your day is like, you're not even focused on what was the news, what's going on over there. You're present you're focused into the now at every moment, almost every moment. And when you're not, you recognize it. So you bring yourself back to your third eye or to your heart, or you're being grounded. You know, I've got my feet and I'm going back and forth, my feet on the floor, because that's grounding too. It brings your awareness and your presence to your feet, to being in this physical suit we're in right now. We've got all these practices around us, and I know that this is all coming up because we need to hear it, but you need to hear it too. Like whoever's listening to this, you are so much more than you think you are. That's all I can tell you. And when someone says that, when I first started hearing that, I was like, whatever. But we are so much more than we think we are. And then even when we think we are, we're so much more than that.
Yeah. I mean, if you listen to Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, they're all about this stuff, and they'll confirm that as well. And they're all scientists and doctors, and so it's all proven stuff. So we'll leave you with that. You are so much more than you think you are. And I would say play with it, practice, see how it goes. Notice when you're thinking negative things, how much negative stuff shows up. Notice when you're thinking positive things, how much positive things show up. And so when I say things, like experiences or people or situations and stuff. So I think we're good for today. It was a great conversation, a lot of information. Again, it just totally comes back to your own awareness, discernment of your intuition, noticing what feels good, what doesn't feel good, and practice listening to it. Any final words?
I would say surrender. Just surrender unto everything. And then it's all right to say, I don't know anything, because we have beliefs that we've put into play that we think that we know. And by saying that we don't know those things, we kind of like let go of all of it and we just surrender, and then be open to what comes in.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Bev. Thanks, audience. Thanks for being here. If you got anything out of this, please share us with your friends, family, coworkers, and even those you don't really care for, because they probably need to hear it too. All right, my friends. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time. Tea time with
Thank
Amy and
you.
Bev.
Thank you.